Okay, good evening, everyone, and Assalamualaikum. How are you? Okay,
Evening, bro.
yes, I hope everybody is okay. It's rainy season today. Rainy season today.
Yeah.
Apparently, every evening there is raining. So, and then some places, especially in my side in Semenye and Bangi, there are some places which are flooded. Okay, today we will cover two topics actually, but in the single slide, I put up in the single slide, actually it covers two topics, which is on the forming a venture and also growing a venture, but how to create your venture and then forming a venture. And then some of the items are in the slide, but some item I provide in my talk in verbally. So we just take note, especially I realized that there's some things are not there because the slides actually picked from, I modified it from a textbook, but usually in actual class, I will put it in my whiteboard. So, okay, we'll just go through, I'll go slowly and then, but there are 138 slides today, so I need to cover it because I think this is the last class before we have our next week. We don't have class. The other week it will be a presentation for your group presentation. I hope everybody is presenting. If you don't are unable to present, please tell me earlier. Please tell me earlier because there is a presentation mark. Because there have been issues in previous cohorts where the student did not present, and then later on they come back and he came back and then mentioned that why he lost his mark. Presentation mark is an individual mark. You don't present, so you don't get mark, so you need to present. Yeah, so everybody in your group assignment, you just break them apart into your group members, so each one should present. The total presentation is about 15 minutes. And then the rest of the assignment I will put up in, I'll get with Mr. Rizwan how to put up. There are some issues with the LMS. But if you are unable to do that, you just email to me. Yeah, I'll text my email address in terms of other assignments. Yeah, because there are some issues with uploading the quizzes and submission. So I will have to liaise with Mr. Ridwan on the LMS. Yeah, because on the physical class we use open learning, so it is much easier. So this LMS is developed, sort of, not actually. We contracted a developer to develop. It is our own LMS, PBS own LMS. Okay, so we will start today on. I'll share my slide. On building and growing your venture. So in order to run businesses, you need to form your venture. So how do you form your venture? So, so this venture is actually a group of team which usually comprise of the founder or founders. There might be several founders. And then they have key employees, employees who are willing to take risks. Some advisors, you can get some mentors who are experienced. Perhaps your funder or some investor can become, or angel investor sort of, can become your advisor. So you need to create from an idea to a fully functional firm. Entrepreneurship is about a fully functional firm, but you start with an idea. But the difficult part is moving from idea to a fully functional firm. Everybody can have idea, and then you should not be afraid of people stealing your idea, because if you ask anyone, they're bound to be somebody who have the same idea with you. But putting them together and make it into a realizable set of team that can run the business. That is the difficult part. Yeah, so usually this team doesn't come together all at once. Maybe started with the founders putting in some idea, and then they will develop some prototype, run the prototype first, and then you can afford some additional employee personnel, and then you can be agile and you develop it over time. Or you can also develop some prototype and show some investor to get some seed fund. You can also use funding from, which I will tell later, it's funding from some crowdfunders. And then there in Malaysia, there are some crowdfunders. I will explain later. So you get crowdfunders to get funding. Yeah. So usually firms have this board of directors. If it is a company, board of advisors, professionals, and of whom also people rely on direction and advice. Okay, the main liability for a new firm is its newness. With this newness, it's difficult for you to get loan, difficult to get projects. People say you are new, so that there is a liability of newness. There is a high failure rate for newness. So you need to assemble a talented and experienced management team so that you can overcome these limitations. You can put in their profile and so on. So, and then they know how to work it out, how to circumvent certain situations, how to address obstacles that you face. There are always liability of newness when forming any new venture. So elements of new venture team can be your board of directors, if it is a director company, and then other professionals, lenders and investors, board of advisors, management team, and key employees. So in the middle, there will be founder and founders of a venture. This is a normal set of, we call it, organizational structure for a new venture team, because everybody was centered towards the entrepreneur. And then, but one thing that I miss out here, I think, one thing that I miss out here is what sort of venture, what sort of team that you should form. Maybe what sort of entity you should form in developing your or forming your venture. What sort of, there are several kinds of entities that you can form. In Malaysia, we have sole proprietor. It's not covered here. You can just click more. Sole proprietor. I think I'll use a whiteboard later. Need to whiteboard. I need to share whiteboard. Okay, you have in Malaysia we have a sole proprietor. This is the situation in Malaysia. Sole proprietor, we have partnership. Why link partnership and sole proprietor together? And then we have another group. We have a limited partnership, limited liability partnership. And then we have company. Some of you might want to form a cooperative. You can form a small number. I'm not sure I can recall. I think number seven of cooperative. You can be a family cooperative. It's actually a large cooperative. You have to have larger number, but for family cooperative, you can form with a smaller number of participants. Yeah. So this is the main company. Yeah. So proprietor, partnership, limited liability partnership, company, and cooperatives. There are several acts that involved here. We have, for example, for the sole proprietor and partnership, we have this Registration of Businesses Act, ROB 1956. ROB 1956. For limited liability partnership, I'm not mistaken, it is what year it is? I've forgotten. Limited liability partnership is Act 20. Limited liability partnership 2008. You can check. Yeah? No, this is not. No, limited liability partnership 2012. 2012. For company, we have previous act, which is the Companies Act 1965, and then we have Companies Act 2016, and then cooperative, I don't remember cooperative. Yeah, okay. There is Cooperative Act. I don't remember Cooperative Act. Yeah, okay. You will check later. You will check on your own Cooperative Act. Okay. So what is the difference between this act, the different entities? What are the different what are the differences between this entity? Anybody familiar with these entities? What are the differences between these different entities? So we have sole proprietor, we have limited liability partnership, we have company, and we have cooperatives. Yeah. So, and then we have this. This is ROB. This is LLP. This is company. And then we have cooperative. Yeah? I will not cover detail about cooperative. Okay. One first thing. Sole proprietor and partnership. The requirement of Registration of Businesses Act 1956 in Malaysia. Earlier it was in Malaya and then become in Malaysia. Any activities that earns income, given some exclusion, there are some exclusion, are required to register with the registrar of businesses. They are required to register with the registrar of businesses. So it is not a company, it is a business. So when you are a sole proprietor or partnership, it is not a company, it is a business. All these are enterprises, whether you are a sole proprietor, partnership, limited liability partnership, or company, or cooperatives, all these are called enterprises. Yeah, all these are enterprises. But when you register yourself with the registrar of business, you could opt for registration of as a sole proprietor or as a partnership. Okay, there are no shares involved. There are no shares involved, meaning there are no stocks involved, but they have shareholding percentage. If it is a sole proprietor, your shareholding percentage is 100%. If it is a partnership, you can determine your partnership percentage, maybe 50%, 50%, 50%, 25, something, if you are 3% or whatsoever. So there is percentage, but there are no shares involved. And then in terms of legality, who runs the business? It is not the company, it is not the entity, it is you. You are running your own business. You are merely registering your business. You are merely registering your business. The legal entity lies on the sole proprietor or on the partnership. So the sole proprietor can be sued or can be sued. The person who run the business can be sued and can sue and can be sued. So there is no legal person there involved. It is a natural person. So the businesses run by a natural person. For example, if Jefferson Boo set up his own sole proprietor, and then he ran his business as V company, say a V company or V enterprise or V whatever, V trade or something. But when people sue, people cannot sue V trade, people cannot sue V because it doesn't exist. Legally, the business entity doesn't exist. It will fall back to the natural person. You are merely registering your business. If you do not registering in business, the penalty in Malaysia is 50,000. Yeah, penalty is 50,000. If you don't register your business, the act says you will pay 50,000 or you end up in jail. So it covers everything except for certain exclusion, like selling with night market, what do you call it, cottage industry, yeah, and so on. So very few, I think about 5 exclusion. The rest all, whether you sell online or offline and so on, it is governed under the sole proprietor, all this Registration of Business Act, which was enacted in 1956, 1 year before Malaysia gains independence. That is Limited Liability Partnership. Okay, ROB, Registration of Businesses Act. Or any question who are not familiar with this, because Malaysian call enterprise, is not, they are not aware that the enterprise actually doesn't exist. It is merely registering your own business, but you can trade as, you can write it as trading as. So Jefferson Boo, they have this TA, trading as Boo Enterprise, trading as, or Jefferson Boo trading as. You can put up some floral marketing, for example, anything that nothing to do with your name. So it is merely trading as, but the legal entity is still the natural entity, which are the sole proprietor or partnership. So this partnership and sole proprietor can be sued or can sue and can be sued legally. Okay, any question on that? Okay, everybody familiar with sole proprietor, so you can if you register your own name, it's in Malaysia it's about 40 ringgit, but if you use another name trading as, it's about 70 ringgit. I think it's cheap. And then you have to renew yearly. It is a yearly renewable. And then we have, before we move to limited liability partnership, I'll move to companies first. There are 2 acts involved. There are Companies Act 1965 and also Companies Act 2016. All those companies that are registered after 2016 is actually they registered under the 2016 Act. In the 2016 Act, we have Section 14. We have there is no such thing as memorandum and articles of association. We have constitution. There is it allow one person to become the shareholder, one person to become the director, and then you can even be what do you call it, a berhad, what do you call it, limited company instead of private limited company if you have a large capital of 2 million and paid up capital. Okay, and then there is no Form 42, Form 24, 24, 49, and so on. But you have Section 14 will release all these items. So it is more easy, lenient for those who form their company in 2016. And then those who form the companies under 1965, When come to 2016, they so far they do not have to redo their M&A. They do not have to redo, remember, because they have, for those registered in 1965, they have their M&A, Memorandum and Article of Association. They don't have constitution. They have 2 directors. They have at least 2 shareholders. They have this 24, Form 24, Form 49, and so on. But come to 2016, they do not have to change. They continue with whatever they have. The company number still continues. So, but the law that applies is a law of 2016. But I think sort of combined with 1965 because you don't have to redo your constitution and so on, because they don't have they have M&A, Memorandum and Articles of Association, in 1965, but for 2016 there is no M&A. We have constitution. So but they don't have to do. Otherwise, there will be too many companies, hundreds, thousands of companies to have to redo back their documents if they want to comply with 2016. So they just bring it over. Okay. When you deal with as a company, you are forming a legal entity. You are forming a legal entity. So you are limited whether it is usually limited. Yeah, limited by the private limited or limited company, where when you are limited company, the liability is limited to your shares. The liability is limited to your shares. But there are some companies which are limited, which are guaranteed, which are limited by guarantee. There are 2 types of guarantee. When you say about limited, company in Malaysia, we have Sendirian Berhad or Berhad. Yeah. Sendirian Berhad meaning that it is a private limited, and that if there is no corporate entity, it's called private exempt company. And then it is a legal entity. So it is a legal person. Legal person, it can sue, it can be sued. And then it buffers. Actually, it doesn't buffer. Actually, the owner or shareholders and the entity and the company is a separate entity. It's a separate entity, separate legal entity. The natural person and the company is a separate legal entity. Legally, they are different entities. So you can sue the company, but the company is when you sue the company, you are not suing the owners. You are suing the companies only. The company is a legal entity. Okay, and then there are 2 types of liability. There are limited. When in terms of limited, limited, there are limited by shares. It can be limited by guarantee. They are limited by shares and limited by guarantee. Okay, I like to tell about limited by guarantee because Putra Business School, for your information, Putra Business School is actually legally operates as Yayasan Putra Business School, which is a company limited by guarantee. It is not limited by shares. There is no shares in Putra Business School. Yeah, it is limited by guarantee. So who are the guarantors of or owners of Putra Business School? They are UPM. Yeah, so it's actually, it belongs to UPM, but it is not by share. It is by limited by guarantee. And then the other, but usually it is limited by shares. So your amount of liability is limited to your amount of share. But sometimes when you take loans and so on, the banks will request for the shareholders or directors to guarantee, because otherwise banks and lenders can only sue up to the limited liability company. So they can only get whatever it is in that company, but not beyond that. That's why they normally request for the directors to sign a guarantor, sort of, they say, jointly and severally guarantee the loan and whatsoever. That is company. Yeah, that is company.
Prof, so for when it's limited by guarantee, is there a set amount or the limit of the monetary value to it?
There is no monetary value.
No monetary value.
No monetary. You can sue the whole amount because it's guaranteed by the. Some companies have limited by guarantees such as legal firm, accounting bodies, accounting firm, and so on. They guarantee they don't have shares, but they guarantee the whole thing. Whatever they do, they guarantee whole sum. Yes. Okay. There is no limit amount. So whatever you act on PBS will be directly goes back to UPM. Yeah, it's guaranteed by UPM. Okay. Any other question on company? There are two acts, 1965, 2016, and then it is a legal person. When you deal with company, it is a legal person. They are separate entity from their owners. So proprietor and partnership are not separate entity from their owners. It is trading as, the owners are trading as the company. It is just registration of business. Companies Act is not registration of business. It is the company as a legal entity. Okay, now we'll move into, if there is no question, I move into limited liability partnership. There are advantages and there are disadvantages of sole proprietor and company. One thing about partnership, when you talk about partnership, when you deal with businesses, when people sue the business, it will be directly towards the partners, the person behind the business. So you will be get sued by you can be sued by your suppliers, your customers, and so on. So how to buffer that? How to act to put something in the intermediary? So they have this limited liability partnership 2012, where we create a partnership where their liability is limited to the shares. So there is amount of shares, and then your liability is similar like pro partnership, but your partnership, but the partnership is a legal entity. It can sue and can be sued. Similar, it's actually in between the company and the partnership as in the ROB 1965. Limited liability partnership is in between. They have some advantages of a company, some advantages of a partnership, and some disadvantages of the company, some disadvantages of the partnership. They are in between. Yeah, so it is limited liability partnership. LLP. So you can find some companies in Malaysia, they have the terms PLT, Perkongsian Liability Terhad, PLT. So you can have something with your own name, floral marketing, for example, that appears to be a sole proprietor or partnership. Or you can have a company like, what's it called? Abu Qasim Sendirian Berhad, for example, it is a company which is a Sendirian and Berhad, or you can have a company like something like, say, Floral Marketing PLT, Perkongsian Liability Terhad. It is a limited liability partnership. And then cooperative. Cooperative will use to bear the name Berhad liability or limited liability. It is limited liability based on the number of shares. But the differences between these cooperatives compared to company is cooperatives, your voting right is one voting right per person, per member, one voting right per member, whatever, regardless of whatever amount of shares you hold. And by the way, company have shares. So proprietor and partnership doesn't have shares. Company have shares. You can have ordinary shares, you can have preference shares, you can issue your shares. Yeah, and then your voting right is based on shares for company. Cooperatives, you can invest in the company, you have some share, but your voting right is not based on the share. Your voting right is based on your membership. One person, one vote. Where company, your voting right is based on the number of shares that you hold. So you can control the company, but you cannot control the cooperative. But okay, these are some formation of companies. Yeah. So no question. Any question? We move back to the slide. Any questions so far on companies? Okay. So when you form a venture, the most important and most expensive employee is your partner. most expensive employee. And sometimes it's better to hire a staff rather than make them as a partner. You assume that the partner is cheaper so that you don't have to pay them salary. Of course, you don't have to pay them salary every month when you are starting your business. But after you build up your business, if the partner is just a sleeping partner, yeah, they will take certain amount of share, they take certain privileges, certain benefit, and then they even have voting rights. So that is the most expensive, and then they can fight with you. And so you cannot fire them. And then if you want to uh, remove them, you have to buy over their shares. So they can be a board of directors. They can override you in your decision if it is not uh, against their, it's not suitable to them. And then they can move to other direction. Then they have authority in the company. So, but you still have to bear the cost that they spend on. So, okay, now we have we talk about common mistakes in forming a new venture team is placing an unqualified friends or family members. Businesses are businesses. You don't put family members, especially those who are unqualified, because in management positions, yeah, because they will be a burden to you. And then so assuming that you have success in your previous industry, and then you want to apply whatever you have done in the previous industry to the new industry, that is also another mistake, because every industry is different. Yeah, when you change the industry, the environment is different, the networks are different. You need to build a network of supply chain, network of your customers, and then the community, the products, and then how they measure success in the different industries are different. So, and then the other one is presenting a one-person team. So everybody wear all hats with no plans to bolster the team. So we need to have, in forming a team, you need to have everybody. You cannot have all engineers. You cannot have all accountants. So you are doing engineering company. So all your members are engineers. Nobody I mean have capability to look at the accounts. Nobody can do marketing. So nobody can do the other administration, payroll, and so on. So you need a combination teams. But some of them can be key employee, some of them can be a management team, and so on. Some of them can be a founder or partner. And then the other one is hiring top managers without sharing ownership in the firms. These top managers may leave the company whenever they feel unsuitable. They just leave the company and then leave the jobs hanging. But yet, if you give them partnership, they are the most expensive employee. And then not disclosing or talking dismissively of management team skill, or there is a competency gap, and then there is unclear or vague plan, yeah, in filling the skill or competency gaps. So this is another common mistakes in forming a new venture team. Okay, this is some information that we have. The characteristic of the founder must have significant impact in the manner of which the new venture team takes shape. So this is normal. The founder will determine which direction and then how the businesses will look, and then which the perspective that it takes, the partners, the associates, the collaborations, and then the customers will be based on the characteristics of these founders of the team. If you have so, and then studies have shown that more than 50% to 60-70% of all the ventures are started by more than one individual. And then we do not know whether those that started as a sole entrepreneur or those started in the team will have advantage over the other. Yes. And then it's about advantages and disadvantages of starting a venture as a team. When you have teams, you have more than one person, it will bring more talent, it will bring more resources and ideas to a new venture, especially when you have social and professional context. So businesses is about developing network. If you don't have network, it's difficult for you to build your solution. I come from in the IT industry. In the IT industry, some people are very good in networking, but they are not good in programming, developing software. Some people are good at developing software, but they are not good at dealing with hardware. And then some people are good at hardware, but they are not good in networking, for example. So you need a combination of them. And then looking today, we have artificial intelligence. We need to have people. So we need to have a combination of people so that it can bring more talent, resources, ideas, and also the network that they have. Yeah, so they have network, the suppliers network, service providers network, as well as customer networks. And then in order to get licenses, for example, you get funding, grants, and so on, you need to have a good network. So, so another successful criteria is that the co-founders need to be provide psychological support to one another, so that the whole team will uh, be, could build up as a successful venture. The disadvantages are most of the time, this is my experience, most of the time when you start off, you can see that you may have good relationship, you can get along. After a while, you can realize that you are moving in different direction and difficult for you to convince your team members. So the team members, for example, partners, one move to one direction, the other move to the other direction, and then the staff will get mixed up because we have a ship with two captains. So you should not start off with equal 50-50 equity. If you have 2%, one person should be the CEO, the other person should be the COO, and the CEO should hold 51% at least. And then there is a 1% who can make the decision. Otherwise, there could be a stalemate where decisions could not be made, and then you will stuck there and arguing. So no businesses will run, especially when there are tough decisions to make. Everybody will argue. One person want to decide this way, the other person want to decide the other way, and then nothing will happen. And then if we works out, they agree to work on the other person's decision, and then when it fails, they will start blaming, and so it is not good for the organization. So if founders have similar areas of expertise, they can duplicate rather than complement one another. So this is another disadvantages. So they don't complement each other. They want to. And then team members can easily disagree on certain work habits, tolerance of risk, level of patience for the business, idea on how the business should be run, and then other issues. They were bound to be disagreement. This is common. I've run in business umpteen years. So this is common. And then I've been into several partnerships, several companies. This is common. And then when I discuss with my friends also, these are common. Yeah, team members do not get along. So key elements of successful founding team, you need to work together before or rather than you form up a team, then that is the first time you work together. You need to have been working before, and then you know the ways and the style of thinking of your partner. And then the members of the team are heterogeneous because they have diverse abilities, and then they will allow the other person to make decision. For example, marketing. When you have two people in marketing, both have different direction, so it will become haywire. But if you have only one person in marketing, you let the marketing person be in charge of marketing. You have trust on him, and then you, for example, in engineering, or in accounting, you do your role. So it is best that the team to be heterogeneous rather than homogeneous. When you have homogeneous, everybody will have different school of thought. So rather than that, it's better that the marketing guy deal with marketing, the accounting guy deal with accounting. But when you have 2% doing accounting, and then they will have different treatment. How do you treat your depreciation? 50%, 25%? And then how do you treat the other tax issues and so on? So you will start arguing. So you need to have trust between each other. And then the team should not be too big. When the team is too big, there will be communication problem, and then increase potential for conflict. Yeah, so the sweet spot is between 2 to 3 founders, so that you know each other, and then will take time for you to develop. It is about like people getting married. But the first time you married, when you were courting, I think you like your girlfriend or boyfriend very much. When you start getting married, you will see the bad side of of one another. But you need to have some time to understand, yeah, each other. So the preferred attributes of sole entrepreneurs or members of a new venture team should be there should be higher education in terms of entrepreneurial skills, and then it is best that they have prior entrepreneurial experience. Yes. So that, and then it's also good for you to have relevant industry experience. Say you want to move into oil and gas, it's better for you to have experience working in an oil and gas industry rather than jumping into oil and gas industry, doesn't have any understanding of whatever is involved in the oil and gas industry. You are moving into financial technology, you should have some familiarity of the financial services, what products are there, trade finances, banking operations, and loans, and so on. You have some understanding rather than you jump into it and then you make your own assumptions. So founders with relevant industry are more likely to establish professional network, because you are able to also to build your network with your former colleagues, your peers, and so on. And then you are more applicable in terms of marketing and management skill. So founders, is best to have broad social and professional network, because businesses is about network. Business, you don't have network, it's difficult for you to do business. When you put something on your stall, for example, at the roadside and wait for people to come, it will be a waiting game unless people know you, and then they will stop. Or you can have larger businesses when you supply to catering and other contracts and so on. So when you have broad social and professional networks, so with additional know-how, capital, and customer referrals, you will be able to success more. Easier for you to be successful. And then the management team and key employees. So each startup will have, there will be differences, vary in terms of how they add additional personnel. Some instances, founders will work alone, especially those in technical areas. They can develop their own tools first, develop their software first, and put up and so on. And then only they will hire their employees gradually. But there are also founders who immediately hire employees to do some work and so on. So it depends on the skill that you have, and then whether there is a skill gap. For example, if you are not able to do programming and then you want to do some software, you will have to hire people. But if you are able to build up some your own tools, you will not hire people in the early stage. So it's based on the skills profile. Yeah, so this is skill profile. Yeah, so there are things I will not go through. This is based on the book. Yeah, but basically it is a skill profile. Yeah, you understand skill profile. And then sources of labor, new ventures utilize their good work. So you can have people of full time. Yeah, where you can get your employees. You can be full time or part time employee. You can start off with people with part time. People working in another company with experience. You give them tasks to do part time rather than hire them full time, and it will incur higher cost to you. Or you can also use interns, yeah, as trainees and so on to obtain practical experience. There are people who rely on interns to do works. There you can also hire freelancers, yeah, freelancers or contractors to do some work, develop tools, programs, software, and so on. And then there could be also virtual assistant, freelancers that provide administrative, technical, or creative assistance remotely from a home office. Like, yeah, from a home office. You can have virtual assistants. Okay, any question on so far before I move into role of board of directors? Any questions so far? Okay. Normally, if it is a company, you will have board of directors. But if it is a sole proprietor, you will not have a board of directors. You will have partners. In partnership, you have partners, sole proprietor. It is a sole proprietor. Although you can name your card, you put in your card as director and so on, but actually you are not the director because there are no directors um, in sole proprietor on partnerships. For a company, there will be a board of directors. So it organizes a corporation. It is a legal entity, a legal person, so there need to be a director. For those registered under Companies Act 2016, you only need one director. For those registered under previous companies, old companies that registered under Companies Act 1965, you need to have two directors, two shareholders and two directors. So director is a panel of individuals elected by corporations to oversee the management of the firm. They can be, in Malaysia, we have independent director and we have what do you call executive directors. Executive directors who are involved in the day-to-day running of the business. The independent directors, they are not involved in day-to-day running of the business. Yeah, so and here written as inside director and outside director. So the responsibility of the board of director is to appoint officers of the firm. It can appoint CEO, it can appoint COO, those are officers of the firm. It can declare dividends, it can oversee the affairs of the corporation. For example, dividends, there are two types of shares, which are the ordinary shares and preference shares. Ordinary shares can be determined from time to time based on the profitability of the company, but the preference shares you can determine based on the contract when you issue the shares. Yeah, so if you want to become a preference shareholders of the company, you need to look at the contracts. And then there is requirements to have meetings in the, you have to look at the Companies Act. I don't recall how many based on Malaysian requirement, but at least you need to have an annual general meeting and then of the board of directors. The general meeting for the members and also board of directors. Okay, the role of board of directors is to provide guidance. Unless you are running your own, we are a company that provide guidance and formal governance of the company, and then it create legitimacy of the company. And then, so you have professional advisors. We have professional advisors comprised of your board of advisors, lenders and investors, and other professionals. You may have board of advisors. There are some requirements. For example, in universities, they need to have a board of governance beside their board of directors. Yeah, beside the board of directors, they need to have a board of governance. This sort of board of advisors depends on the company. Some companies require to have board of directors, advisors, and so on. Yeah, so but this board of advisors, you can have mentors and so on. It's a panel of experts that are being asked by the firm's managers to provide counsel and advice on an ongoing basis. Yeah. But unlike the board of directors, this board of advisors does not have legal responsibility, and then it gives non-binding advice. So if a board of director gives an instruction, it is a legal responsibility, and then their advice is a binding advice. So you can bring them to court. But board of advisors, there is no legal responsibility, and then their advice are non-binding. So it can be established for general purposes or for a specific issue. For example, you want to go for listing, IPO, and so on. Yeah. So there are people who are willing to serve on the company's board of directors, board advisors, rather than on the board of directors because they have less time and then there is no legal liability involved. Yeah, and then this is and then guidelines of organizing a board of advisors should not be so that I think you just read this, yeah. So board advisors should not be organized just so a company can boast about it. It is actually to play a proper role, and then they should look at board members who are compatible and complement in terms of experience and expertise to become their board of advisors. Yeah. Then when inviting people to serve on board of advisors, the company should spell out to the individuals their rules in terms of access to the confidential information, because this board of advisors may have access to confidential information in order for them to make their advisors. Then you have lenders and investors. How do you get your fund for the company? Let me see. Okay, I'll cover this later. Yeah. So, but I'll just go through here. So there can be lenders or bankers and also investors, funders like angel investors, like venture capital that have vested interest in the company, in your company, because they finance your company. So like the other non-employee members, like the board of advisors, they will give guidance and lending advice to you. For example, you take financing from SME Corporation. For example, SME Corporation will give advices to you due to their funding of to you. So maybe because there are some projects as well as funding opportunities that you can get from these government bodies and other bodies that they provide funds, but it is not just funding, it is actually a total ecosystem that they will provide fund as well as guidance, assistance, and then sometimes they have this what do you call it, incubator program and so on, so you to grow for you to grow. Yes, for example, in US they have this plug and play and so on, where eBay and PayPal come from a plug and play system where they do pitching and so on, get investors, and then all the while develop the company. Yeah, so these lenders and investors will assume the natural role of providing financial oversight, because once you provide funding, they might have access to you. They may want to have access to your financial reports so they can access the amount that they invested to you and so on. Yeah. So this is on the how lenders and investors can add value to the entrepreneurial firm. They can help to identify and recruit key management personnel. They can provide insight into the industry and markets that they want to venture to participate. Especially like angel investors, they prefer that you venture into the market that they are familiar with. Or if some venture capital will do the same. They prefer that you invest in the market that they are familiar with. So the funders or lenders will also help you to fine-tune your business model to make sure you are successful so that you can repay their financing. So it can serve as a sounding board for new ideas. So they can also introduce for additional sources of capital, maybe banks and other resources. You can get funding. They can also help you to recruit customers to ensure that the business is successful so that you can continue to repay their financing. So lenders also provide add value to arrange some business partnership. So they can have a develop. They can arrange for partnerships so they can in terms of suppliers and customers. They can also serve as board of directors or board of advisors in the organization. Some program like in Malaysia we have UNB earlier. They will put in their advisor as a board of director. They are they will put their representative as a board of director, then or a board of advisor to the company. So it will help the businesses also to, because they can apply their experience, their vast experience in handling situations where the businesses are undergoing. So there are other professionals, for example, like accountants, attorneys, lawyers, business consultants, So business consultant will provide professional expert advice. So some companies, like some investors, angel investors or venture capital or program, entrepreneurship programs will assign business consultants to the companies. So it can be paid or can be free, depending on their category. Then that is about forming your venture. Now we move into funding your venture. Any question so far? Okay. Now we move into funding your venture. How do you get your fund? Can you get your loan if you're a startup? Can you get loans from banks? Will you be able to get loans from banks? No, it's difficult for get loans from banks. That's why in Malaysia we have this form, like we call it white. Cover that later, yeah. So I'll cover that later. So
Prof, why it's difficult?
why is it difficult? Okay, usually when you go to the bank will require past track records. When you're a startup, you don't have track records. And then number two, the banks will require security or collateral. As a startup, it's difficult for you to produce security or startup. Say you want to borrow when you have no track record with the bank, safe bank, or they will usually request you the equivalent amount of collateral and then at the same level of liquidity. For example, if you want to borrow to start up a business, you want to borrow 1 million ringgit, they will request you an FD of 1 million ringgit. So a security for the financing. And then that is in terms of security. And then it's difficult also to provide a loan because they need to have at least 3 years or 5 years of track record. So as a startup, you are just starting your business. So it is difficult for you to get loans from banks. Does that answer you? So
Yes, Prof. Yeah.
okay. So how do you work it out? How do you so why does this new ventures need funding? So the thing that you need to look at, why do you need funding? So you need to purchase inventory. Yeah, you need to pay for advertisement. All these are cash flow. So sometimes we call it working capital. So you need this cash flow to run. Yeah, and then you need this fund to do. And then you need to have capital investment. Capital investment is when you need to buy things, machinery, you need to buy certain real estate, equipments, and so on. And then you also need to developing a product. There is a gestation period to produce the product. There is maybe a month or 2 months or 6 months or until you can sell the product. So there is a gestation period. So there are several types of financing available, but it depends. So you need to know which part of do you need. For example, for like capital investment, you can get for higher purchase and so on. Although it's difficult, but you will need to break them up. This is a capex, capital expenditure. This is your working capital, which is the cash flow. These are the is also a working capital, which is the form you want to buy raw materials, for example. So you need to break them up. Yeah, break them. So where you can get funding, you can get funding from raising money. You can use your personal fund. Yeah, you can get your personal fund, family, friends. Yeah, you can get your debts. You can borrow money from banks or not banks. Any other, you can borrow money. You can have equity capital. You can have people to invest in your company or other creative sources. Yeah. So I will start with, it's not covered here, but okay, it's not covered here. Okay, in Malaysia, we have, I'll put up a site. I'll show you a site. Hold on, yeah. I'll stop share first. Uh, mm, okay, this is the site, Capital Market Malaysia. No, hold on, I'll share the screen. This is one of the sites that we can get financing for startups of new companies in Malaysia. We can visit Capital Markets Malaysia. Capital Markets Malaysia is organized by Securities Commission of Malaysia, Suruhanjaya Security Malaysia, yeah, Securities of Commission Malaysia. There are, you can see here, capital market segment. We have equity market, sukuk market, and so on. So in terms of our digital market, we have two main products, which is the equity crowdfunding and peer-to-peer financing. Okay, we look at equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding allow you to get access to funds from equity holders, new equity holders. There will be some campaigns, and then there will be platforms. Yeah, so these are platforms that you can run that come from. The platforms are invested by angel investor, retail investor, and venture capitals. Yeah, and also other sophisticated investor. So these are the operators, the equity crowdfunding operators. Okay, equity crowdfunding operators, they will put up your product. For example, like I'll just pick up one of them. For example, Pitching. Pitching is a platform for equity crowdfunding. So these are the company. For example, investment opportunity. They look at the opportunity. So far they have raised 808 1,000,000 for this new Leaf Agro. This is a new company. They want to do durian plantation. So you will be one of these. If you are running a business, you will be one of these. You will be putting up your business here, and then you calls. The target is actually 1 million. There are so far 49 investors. There are 23 days left. So these investors will invest in your company. So this Nori is a brand incubator for celebrities. Also, there are many more campaigns, yeah, launching soon. Agro's vertical farms, for example. So you will be one of these companies. So they target to have 22.5 million. They value themselves for 18.5 million. So you can go to any of these company, and then they will. This campaign is accepting reservation. They have not opened yet. So you do your pitching. This is a pitching. So you do your pitching, video pitching, and then they will invest. What is the problem that they are solving? And then what is their solution? And then they are calling for investors to invest into their company. So say maybe Sondos Dayan, you want to form a company, you can put up your information here. You have your financial information, so you need to log in, updates, and so on. So there are no current updates. So we'll look into a company that have they have run. This is the new. This is a new companies. For example, like successful funded campaign. For example, this is another packaging industry. So let's go to this packaging industry. So they have 30 investors. They have. Wait, let's see this. They have allotted 2 million shares 30 investors. So the largest investment each is 600,000. The cooling off period is 10 October. And then they have the, oh, you need to log in. See, campaign info. There are, this is the product, the problem, the solution that they give, the product. Yeah. They do a mixed paper waste management, upcycling, and the attraction, meaning the attraction is the customers that they already have. There's the businesses that they have already run. That is called traction. Then they have their customers, their business models, their market, competition, and their funding. Yeah. And who are the founders? From UTM, their team, from technical advisor from USM, and then investment team. And then there are other disclosures that they have. So these are how you can get financing from equity crowdfunding. So this is, instead of going to the bank, you can go to these companies, this platform, equity crowdfunding. So any questions so far? Besides equity crowdfunding, we have also in the capital market here, we go to capital market back, we have also they will hold equity, but another method is they give financing at a very high interest, about 12% and so on. So this one, they also work based on platforms. So there is platform, for example, like Litsco. There are many platforms just now, show to you. So this company have companies that require funding. So you could be one of these. Mobile to go, for example, distributor of mobile phone. Their target is 350,000, and then the rate that they were willing to pay to their lenders, peer-to-peer financing are lending 14.88%, about 15% per annum. The tenure is 6 months, meaning per annum, so total about 7%, because 6 months, about 7.44%. So the campaign is closed. Yeah, so these are some of the, this is P2P, peer-to-peer lending, using peer-to-peer lending. It is lending. Compared to the ECF, it is taking equity. They are taking equity. P2P, they don't take equity, but you have to pay interest to them, to the funder, to the lenders. Okay. So we go back to the slide. Okay, so you can have personal fund, you can have debt financing, which is peer-to-peer lending, or you can have equity capital, you can go to ECF or other creative sources. Yeah. Personal fund, you can have contributors, family and friends, give you family and friends. Bootstrapping, meaning that you use whatever you have. You are very thrifty. You use whatever you have. You bootstrap out of necessity. You don't take any loan. Everything is from whatever you have around you. Just to start up, just to seed money, we call it bootstrap, just to start off. Example of bootstrapping, you buy instead of buy the used equipment instead of new equipment. Buy used equipment will be cheaper. Coordinate purchases with other businesses, so you will pay them later. Once you, for example, you will buy more expensive, but you will settle once you get the payment from the customer. So you lease equipment rather than you buy the equipment, so you can pay monthly. You can obtain payment in advance from customers. Maybe you can have 50% first, so that you can start 50% from the customer, and then you provide a deferred payment to your suppliers, for example. You should minimize your personal expenses, and then And then you avoid unnecessary expenses. So you work from home and so on, garage and so on. You buy items cheaply, very cheap. You buy used furniture, for example, share office space with some other businesses. So you hire interns to do some jobs, some tasks to do. So okay, this is what you need, and then bootstrapping. And when you want to go for debt or equity financing, you need to determine precisely how much you need. Then only you will go to put up in the capital market, in the ECF or P2P, how much precisely that you need. Break it into capital expenses, operational expenses, and then you might not need to use them all at once, so you can delay it a little bit progressively or by tranches. You determine most appropriate type of financing, whether you want to go for debt financing or equity financing. And then you need to develop a strategy to the potential investors or bankers. You can also take funding from the bank. For example, in machinery, you can still go for some banks like SME Bank or entrepreneur-related banks. You can get funding for machinery leasing, for example. You can still get machinery leasing, although maybe for working capital or term loan, this will be difficult for you, but you can get for leasing. So most common alternatives are equity funding. I showed to you, which is the equity crowdfunding just now. You can get equity funding, or you can have your friends to have equity in your company, or you can get debt financing or getting a loan. For example, just now I showed to you the P2P lending. Yeah, so it depends. Yeah, so if your risk is high, weak cash flow, high leverage, low to moderate growth, unproven management, it is best that you do bootstrapping. If the business have low risk with a more predictable return, you can go for debt financing. If the business offers high return, unique business idea, you can go equity. Yeah. Then you need to talk about, there is an elevator speech. I think maybe I'll just go through quickly. Elevator speech is assuming that you enter a lift or elevator, and then you have about a few seconds, yeah, or 1 minute. And then you wait for some investor to come in your lift, and then you need to start with the hook, and then hooks are timed up like the weather and so on, and then bring them capture their interest in your product, and then within the 60 seconds you have briefly tell them, create their interest, attract their interest in your product, so that you can set an appointment. The goal of elevator speech or pitch is not to present an idea, but to attract what do you call it? Attract an appointment with them. Yeah. So we can discuss about opportunity, how the product meet, your qualification, describe your market, about 60 seconds. But it's just to attract them so that they are willing to give you an appointment. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. Okay, Megan, Rebecca, Sondos, Zayan, May, Lenaka, everybody okay? Jefferson?
All good, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Now we move into sources of equity funding. So where can you get your equity funding? There are three types. Okay, we'll start with business angels. Business angels are sometimes called angel investors. Angel investors fund using their own fund. They have their own fund. So they invest in their personal capacity. So usually they have wealth. They have their own wealth. They are older because they have their own wealth, well educated, succeeded, and then they would invest a moderate amount. Then preferably some of them will invest in the area that they are familiar with, because they are investing in their own money. And then it is better to get an individual investor, for me, rather than venture capital, because they invest in their own money, and then they might be quite strict as well, but They are not as strict as the venture capital because they have their money. It is their money. Compared to the, this is in US. So you need to have somebody to introduce you to the angel investor. So not easy to get angel investor actually. But in Malaysia, there is also some angel investors. And then the other one is venture capital. Venture capital are not angel investors. They don't have their money. They don't have the money. It is not their money. They are fund managers. So we have people who invest in them. So with that amount of money, so for example, I have a lot of money, so I give to a venture capital for a return of 25% or 2.5%, or it should be higher than what the bank pays. If the bank pays me 3%, so I should expect 3 times or whatever the bank pays, I should get about 9% or 10%. For example, like this now, the P2P, they pay about 15%, so I expect 15%. So I'll put my money to the venture capital. I expect 15%. So the venture capital will find entrepreneurs or startups that require this money, but they need to have assurance that these companies, these startups or ventures can generate more than 15%, because 50% will go to the investor. And then they need to make about 5 to 10%. So they say theirs is about 5%. So 15% plus 5, it will be 20%. And then of course, the entrepreneur will need to make some money as well in order for them to sustain, say about 10%. So at least the investor, the company need to make at least 30 to 35% net operating profit, so that they are able to pay to the venture capital, who will in turn pay to their investors. The period is actually around 2.5 years to 3 years for the venture capital to exit. Venture capital will ask you how they should exit, because they don't want it to be a long-term investment, because they need to invest into another company. So they exit from you, they will get a return of, say, 25% a year, and then after 2 years or 3 years, they will take out their money and then they will invest in another company. That is their business. Their business is invest and take out, invest and take out. They are not there to be your long-term partner. So this is your venture capital. So they are fund managers, so they are like bankers. So they have this is what we call capitalists. Yeah, they provide capital. So in the past, we have Google, Facebook. I think Facebook received about a few $billion in their venture capital. So this is venture capital, and then I think should be about venture capital, and then the other part is initial public offering. We don't have such in Malaysia, but we have some ACE listing, and so on. Yeah, but in US they have this NASDAQ listing. So sorry, I was disconnected. So share my screen again. Okay, so this is initial public offering is get your company listed. Actually, in Malaysia there is not so much offering about on this. There are some ACE listing and so on. Yes, so this is about getting your company listed. Okay, but eventually, many companies plan to give out the exit, because when companies when you take venture capital, they will ask, how will we exit? Is there an exit option? What is the exit strategy? Then many people will say, many startup will offer IPO, and IPO will take some time. Then they don't prefer IPO, but many people provided IPO as an option to exit strategy. IPO is to go listing. What is IPO? IPO is the way to raise equity capital and then raise the company's public profile. And, and then it is a liquidity event that investors like the venture capital or angel investor can recoup their investment. Yeah, so it's actually a form of currency, so you can grow the company via acquisition. Some of the debt financing, some other debt financing will be commercial banks. It's difficult to get commercial banks, to be frank, unless you go for government savings fund like Bank Pembangunan, Exim Bank, SME Bank, which are actually not banks. It's not commercial banks, but they are government agencies, although they are called banks. Yeah. And then guaranteed loans. In order to get funding from some banks, you need to have security. You need to get loan guarantees. So there is an agency in Malaysia that guarantee your loans. We call Credit Guarantee Corporation. So you can opt for Credit Guarantee Corporation, so you can have guarantees from them. And then we have peer-to-peer lenders. I think we have covered peer-to-peer lenders just now. Peer-to-peer financing, vendor credit. The vendor that provide you supplies can give you credit, or factoring. Factoring is where you factor your invoice to a bank. The bank will pay a certain portion at a discount. For example, like if you have a contract of 1 million, you factor it to the bank, bank will discount it to say 85%, and then bank will only pay you 850,000. The 150,000 will be revenue to the bank. Yeah, so it is called factoring. Then crowdfunding, there are two types of crowdfunding: reward-based crowdfunding, entrepreneurs to raise money for some type of amenity or reward, or the equity-based crowdfunding, which I've explained just now, which is the ECF, equity crowdfunding. You can also lease certain equipment. There are two types of lease. We have operational lease and financial lease. Did I cover that? Operational lease. Okay, no, I don't do. Operational lease and financial lease. Operational lease is leasing of equipment with no intention to purchase. So eventually, at the end, the asset will still belong to the lessor. Yeah, so that is operational lease. You backhoe machinery and so on, so belong to the lessor. Or computers, sometimes they will take back the computers. So these are operational lease. There is another kind of lease, we call it financial lease. Example is hire purchase. In Malaysia, there are two types of hire purchase. We call it non-act and act. Non-act usually for non-consumer items. For consumer items, we have act. We follow the Hire Purchase Act 1976. So for this hire purchase or leasing or financial lease, at the end of the period, it will be an option to purchase. There would not option, it will end up with a purchase. For example, you lease a car or hire purchase, say for 5 years, this is 60 months, the 59 months it will be leasing or hire, and then you end up with the purchase in the 60th month, it will be a purchase. So that hire and purchase. And then this is leasing, or you can have also strategic partners, another source of capital. So they can have access to particular resources. Instead of paying, you can use some of the resources first and settle off later and so on. This is having strategic partners. It's another method to cover up your funding or financing. Okay. Any question so far on funding? So where are we? Let's see. Let's get forward. Let me check. Where are we? We are 67. Oh. Okay. I'll share the screen again. Any question? No question. Yeah. I'll just continue. Okay, now we move into intellectual property. What is intellectual property? There are several types of intellectual property. It's actually about intangible items in that your asset owns. Intangible items. Yeah. So some of the asset your company owns intangibles. We call it human intellect. We call it intellectual property, this intangible property. So, so there are common mistake. For some company, you don't properly identify all your intellectual property. You don't patent, you don't put copyright, and so on. You don't recognize the value of intellectual property. You don't use your intellectual property as part of your overall plan, because you can put up some value for the intellectual property, and then you don't take sufficient steps to protect your intellectual property. So this one I'll go quickly. Otherwise, we will not have you will not be able to finish in time. The four key forms of intellectual property are patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. Patents are registered. You need to register them. So it is based on location or region. If you patent in Malaysia, it is actually can be implemented or exercised in Malaysia only, meaning that if somebody take up your patent and implement it in US, they can still do it. If you patent in US and you did not patent in Europe, people can take up the patent and implement it in Europe, and then they can still do it legally. So you need to cover patent in several countries or several areas. Yeah, so you have Europe, US, and in Malaysia, yeah, countries. So it does not give the owner the right to sell, but with patent, people need to license. Yeah. So for patent, it must have utility. It must be different from before. In general knowledge cannot be a patent, and then it must not be obvious. Yeah. So things that everybody knows you cannot patent. Today we have rendang. We cannot patent rendang because everybody knows how to make rendang, for example. So you cannot do. So we have types of patents. We have utility patents about 20 years, design patent 14 years, plant patents about 20 years, and so on. So these are some of the business method patents. So for business method how to obtain patent, you need to make sure you need to do a search first, and then you make sure the invention is practical, determine what type of application to file. You hire a patent attorney, conduct a patent search, file a patent application, and this is for US. If you do in Europe, you have to submit you can have to do the same thing in Europe, in Malaysia, and so on. And then besides patent, you can have trademark. Trademark, it must not be a common name that people have commonly used. So it can be any word name, and you need to distinguish your product or service from others. So these are trademark. And in any word and so on, it can be renewable for every 10 years, or service mark can renewable for every 10 years. Trademark, yeah. So you can have collective mark or certification mark. So you need to select an appropriate mark, perform a trademark search, and then create rights in the trademark. So they have R or TM on top of your logo. Copyright is about intellectual property. You can have authorship, books, music, computer software. You can copyright them. So copyright, it can be books, musical composition, computer software, plays, and so on. Pantomimes, pictorial. This is copyright. Copyright is about 100 years. And then we have trade secret. What is trade secret? Trade secret is don't tell anybody. You don't tell anybody whatever is your marketing plan, product formulas, and so on. You don't tell anybody. You do trade secret protection, meaning that you have a non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality deed. You cover it so that none of your staff will be able, non-competition agreement, and so on. So none of your staff or former staff would be able to disclose anything that they found in your company. It is a trade secret. Trade secret. So it is not known outside the company, known only inside the company. You safeguard using information confidential, non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality deed, and so on. Akta Rahsia Rasmi in Malaysia, and then it is so that is how you work out trade secret. Don't tell anybody. So you restrict access, password protecting certain documents, you breaking up the formula or recipe to several locations, nobody knows everything, maintaining logbook to for access to sensitive materials, labeling documents, maintaining logbooks, and then maintaining logbook for visitors, maintaining adequate overall security measures. Yes, so these are how. And then there is a method to do intellectual property.
Prof, just
Yes.
one question. For the copyright, do you need to register?
Yes.
You need to register.
In Malaysia, we have IPO and my IPO to register your copyright. My IPO. Yeah. Trade secret, you don't register. Patent, you need to register. Trademark, you need to register. Yeah. Any other question? Okay. Okay. We move on. There is intellectual property audit. Companies also need to do your intellectual property audit. So determine whether the intellectual property is properly protected, and then justify the valuation of the intellectual property when it comes to merger or acquisition. You need to put up the intangible asset value for the intellectual property. Now we have covered setting up your venture. Now we want to grow your venture. Only a few slides. Any question on forming your venture and funding your venture? Any question? Yeah, Nurul, Siti Mariam, Safi, Hakimi.
So far, no question, Prof.
So far, no question. Yeah. Okay, now we look into growing your venture. Okay, the most difficult part for most entrepreneurship is to scaling up. You can run your entrepreneur. Starting up is, I think, it's easy. You can ask anybody who have started your entrepreneurship. They can start, they can maintain, but scaling up is another thing. Important reality, not all businesses have potential to be aggressively growth firm. A business can grow, cannot, but the businesses can grow too fast, and then business success doesn't always scale. That is the reality. So in order to do so, you need to make sure that you don't lose sight of your core strategy when you prepare to grow, because that is the value of the company. Company customers buy because of deals with you, buy your product because of the value. Because if the businesses become distracted and start pursuing opportunity for every opportunity that comes in, so it will stray into areas that it has disadvantage. Because you have set up your business, it has been running for 5 years, 10 years. Suddenly, when you want to grow, you move into another area which is not your area. So you need to establish a growth-related plan. You need to plan for your growth, write a proper business plan. And then when you talk about entrepreneurship, we discuss about effectuation theory. So you have reached a certain situation. When you want to grow, it is you apply all the management theory that you have learned. All the management theory. You are doing business as usual and you are growing. So there are signs that when businesses are growing too fast, one is you have heavy gearing. You borrow money to pay for your operating expenses. You can borrow money for your capital expenses to expansion, but when you start borrow money to pay your salaries, to pay for your utilities, meaning that you are growing too fast. So you have extremely tight profit margin. Your margin should be say you have venture capital, it's about 30%. If you start to be too slim, maybe 5%, 2%, very tight profit margin, just merely breaking even, so you are going too fast. You are overstretched staff. Most of the staff are working overtime. And then you are declining your product quality. There are messages coming from associates, partners, and customers unanswered. Customers start complaining about your product. Employees dread coming to work. Productivity falling. and then operating is in crisis mode, and then the business financial is getting poor. So these are signs that your businesses are growing too fast. And there are companies that grow up too fast, too heavy gearing. I can recall, like, for example, like Papa Rich, even before the COVID-19, they are also already in bad shape. Yeah. So there are two reasons for growth. One is economies of scale. So when you need to grow because you want to reduce your cost, you grow. One is to economies of scope, because the scope of the operation or range of operation create efficiency, so you need to grow. These are reasons. And then market leadership, you want to hold number one position or number two position in the industry, you grow. Or there is larger businesses, you usually have greater influence, so you grow so that you can have influence, power, and better survivability. Some customers want you to grow, so you accommodate the growth of key customers. And then you want to attract and retain talented employees, so you grow because of the you need to generate promotional opportunities for your employees. You need to grow. So this is organizational life cycle. You will start introduction, early growth, continuous growth, maturity, and you will decline. And then at this period, you need to develop, you need to develop a new products. Yeah, you need to develop a new product and then start growing again. And then here you need to start the growing again. Otherwise, you will start declining. Yeah. Okay. That is this mode. Okay. Okay, when you start business, usually it is at the introduction stage. So you have your core strength and capabilities. So you need to make sure that your initial product is right, and then you develop your businesses. And then during the growth stage, the founder start working on the business rather than in business. So you increase formalization, and then companies start to grow. And then there will be continuous growth stage, so that there will be more structure and formalization. You moving into business as usual, not the effectuation theory. You are doing more targeted management style. And then at the end, companies usually will go into the maturity stage. And then you need to develop new products, like mentioned to you just now. Need to improve product, or you could also improve your business model at this stage. Otherwise, you will reach a declining stage. Yeah. Two categories of challenge for firm growth is one is managerial capacity problem. The other one is day-to-day challenges. Managerial capacity, because some companies are not prepared to grow. So there is limited managerial capacity. The management are not capable to grow. So you're stuck at that level. So the company will not be able to grow. So you need to plan how to grow. So the firm consists of entrepreneurial services, new products. So sometimes the entrepreneurial services and new product services doesn't really capable to grow, because they are more entrepreneurial when they are centered in the CEO and so on, where then the managerial services are not able to execute proper management. Yeah. Can read about it. And then the other one is the adverse selection, where the employees, when you find employees and so on, you have adverse selection. You are unable to find the right employees for the growth. And some employees are meant for entrepreneurial setup, but not for managerial setup. Then there are moral hazard. So in terms of incentives and so on, demotivation causes moral hazard. So basic model for firm growth, you need to have from the entrepreneurial services, you need to move into managerial services in order to accomplish the firm growth. So you need to administer the routine function and so on. This is what we learn in business school, entrepreneurial services, where you learn in entrepreneurial topics and then or entrepreneurial courses. And then you need to move a normal business as usual activity to do managerial services. So this is a different set of people. You might need a different set of people. Yeah, so the impact in this paper from theory of growth of the firm. So the ability to increase managerial capacity is constrained by socialization of the new managers, managerial motivation, adverse selection, and moral hazard, the one that we have explained just now. Yeah, and then that besides the capacity of management, the managerial capability, so we have issues of cash flow management. When you grow, you need to require increase of cash, and then there is price stability. Yeah, so growth comes at the expense of competitors' market share. There will be a price war. There will be issue of quality control. Yeah, when there is growth, you need to maintain the quality control. So there are some times when I realize that when I go to restaurants, when they grow, the quality deteriorate. It's not like when they were small. Then there is capital constraint. You need to have capital expenditures when you grow. Yeah. So strategies for growth. What are the strategies for growth? You need to have internal growth strategy. You need to take effort within the organization itself, new product development, product-related strategies, international expansion, so that you are capable to grow. And then you need to have external growth strategy, rely on mergers, strategic alliances, joint venture, licensing, franchising. So you have external support for you to grow. So the internal strategy, you can look into new product development, product-related strategy, international expansion. Whereas external growth strategy, you can merge in order to go to a new market. You can merge with another company. You can do licensing to another company outside in certain country to expand your business. You can do strategic alliances and joint venture for a certain country, for example. Instead of you going there, you joint venture with a company there, or you can do strategic alliances. They will market your product and you will market your product here, or it will be franchising. The internal growth strategy is to develop new product. Okay, this one we have covered. Yeah, internal growth strategy. The advantages of external growth strategy is incremental, even pace, provide maximum control because everything is within your company, preserve organizational culture, you encourage internal entrepreneurship, allow firms to promote growth from within. But usually it is slow. And then you need to develop new resources. So investment in internal growth strategy can be difficult and it could be failed. And then you need to add into the industry capacity. So development of new product also is, you can also develop new products. Yeah. Find a need, develop new products, get quality and pricing, specific target market, and develop your new product. Yeah. And then this is internal product related strategy. Because we are short of time, I'll just go through quickly, and you can also go for international expansion. Those are the internal strategy. And then besides you just go, you please read on your own, yeah. And then for external growth strategy, you can merge and acquire another company, yeah. So advantages is you can have reduced competition when you do merger. Some people just merge because they want to reduce competition. Get access to proprietary products, IPO, intellectual property, IPs. Then you can get access to new products. You have technical expertise, establish a brand name, economies of scale, diversification, but there could be incompatibility in terms of the top management, incompatible top management. Yeah, the top management can fight with each other. Clash of corporate culture. There are two companies merged, two different teams, coming from two different culture. They could be clash on corporate culture. And then it could be operational problems, because systems, there are two systems combining, so you need to decide which system you want to apply. And then it also involves increased business complexity, loss of organizational flexibility, and antitrust implications. Yeah. So this is mergers and acquisition. You read through this, and then the other one is licensing. You provide license of a product to another company, intellectual property involving technology licensing and merchandise and character licensing. Or you can also do strategic alliances, partnership with other companies, and joint ventures with other companies. So you can gain access and economies of scale, but you don't own that company. It is in a way, it is also neutralizing or blocking competitors, but if you lost proprietary information because they know what is your product, certain trade secret will be disclosed to them inadvertently. There will be management complexity. So you can risk becoming too independent on your partner, and then you will lose your decision autonomy because the strategic alliances will want to make decision as well. There could be also culture clash, and loss of organizational flexibility. Yeah, so there are two types of alliances: technology alliances and marketing alliances. Technology alliances will involve R&D, engineering, and manufacturing, whereas marketing alliances is how you market and distribute your products to another country. Then you can also do joint venture in a foreign country. Yeah, they can be scale joint venture at a single point or link joint venture. Yeah. And then that's all. We have only 15 minutes for Q&A for the whole chapter 7, chapter 8 and 9. Any question in that? Any question? Nurul or Lenaka, Mayuting, Jefferson, okay? Okay, basically, in terms of this merger and acquisition, you need to remember there are two methods how to grow your strategy to grow. There are one group is internal growth strategy, where you develop your new product. You have product related strategies. You go international expansion on your own. The other one is actually you don't go on your own, but you combine with others. You can merger, you can do merger, you can merge with other companies, you can acquire another company, M&A. You can do licensing. Instead of you going, you license another company. Or you have strategic alliances where you can have your existence out there, but by using strategic alliance agreements. Or you can have joint ventures, or you can just franchise certain activities there. Okay, any question? Sondos Dayan, any question?
No, thank you, Prof.
Okay.
Prof, so for joint venture, you definitely need to set up a new entity, is it?
Yes. Otherwise, it is strategic alliance. Joint venture can have strategic alliance. You don't have to sign up, but we still need an agreement. Joint venture, you have a portion of say 50-50, but certain country they don't allow joint venture where the foreign entities become majority. There are regulation that the foreign companies, for example, we in Indonesia go to Indonesia, we cannot own majority. The Indonesian company that we joint venture with must have certain minimum percentage, which becomes majority. Yeah, so we need to spell out that agreement and so on. But that is in terms of decision making. When you talk about majority shareholdings, it's about decision making. We can have another in the agreement. You can spell out how do you share your profit, meaning that you can still earn larger profit, but in terms of decision making, in terms of equity, we are lesser. Maybe we hold 30%, they hold 70%. But in terms of, for example, when you supply certain raw materials, certain products, and so on, they have to pay and so on. So they can we can also hold larger percentage. For example, there are restaurants in Malaysia that actually have franchising from Indonesian companies, but all the spices and so on have to come from Indonesia, and then they take larger, although the majority shareholders are in Malaysia, but they take larger portion because it can be spelled out in your agreement. Yeah. So
But in terms of employee, if it is the majority from Malaysia, if we take the franchise for Indonesia, so the people there will be from Malaysia or mixing between Indonesia and Malaysia.
okay, in terms of the employee, it depends on the regulation of the country. Some country do not allow us to, even in Malaysia, for example, if we want to invest in certain states in East Malaysia, we cannot bring people from the Peninsula Malaysia there. So if there are workers able to do that, some countries prefer their local workers to do. But we can come in as expatriates, managers, and so on. For example, hotels, they have a general manager or certain director, which are foreigners, but most of the staff need to be locals. So it depends on the countries where you joint venture or where you expand.
But it is determined by the companies itself and the franchise, or by the law of the country.
Yes, by the law, both. If the both by combination of both, because sometimes the company would want to send all their staff, but when you send all the staff, there will be issue of relocation. There will be many other issues, relocation, residentials, accommodations, travel, and so on. And then this staff sometimes need to come back to the country on a very regularly, maybe 6 monthly or yearly, and then they have to pay their tickets and so on. So sometimes we prefer to have, at the same time, we prefer to hire locals there. But the higher ranking person, most of the company will prefer to have the people from their company, from the head office, to be leaders, to be managers, top level management there. But yet, even then, even the country itself would prefer their workers, because one reason for people to allow for foreign investment to come in is to provide employment. So they will provide employment and so on. Yeah, so but nevertheless, there are also companies like in Malaysia where we have companies like Sony or Hitachi, which is a Japanese investors, and then the workers come from Indonesia or Bangladesh. So, so it's up to the company and up to but they have the approval of the authority, which is the Ministry of Human Resources, to bring in workers from the foreign countries. Yeah. So it can be a mixture.
Thank you, bro.
Okay. Okay. Any other question? Sondos, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Jefferson? Okay. Mahayuting, Siti Mariam, any question?
No, Prof.
No, Prof.
Okay. Okay. Safi, any question? Hakimi?
No, Prof.
Okay, everything is clear today, eh? Easy topic. Okay, if there is nothing, can we adjourn today with this? Which is, I think I need to stop share. See what time is it? Okay, we are short by. We still have 7 minutes. If there is no question, we can adjourn. Yeah.
For the presentation, how long per group?
15 minutes. 15 minutes and Q&A about 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes presentation. Q&A of 5 minutes. Okay.
We will start from the next class doing the
Yes.
presentation.
In the presentation will be next class. Not next class, the other class, right? Next week, not next week, the next class. Next week we don't have class. The next week will be your presentation, and everybody need to present. because it is individual mark. Yeah. So you sort out with among your group members so that everybody will present. Those who are not able to present, please inform me early so that we can arrange. Yeah. Okay. Okay, if there is nothing, we can adjourn for today. And thank you very much. And Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay.